Today on the Wealth Cafe, we are going to talk about a year-end strategy to help you minimize your tax bill. Potentially. We have seen some incredible gains in the market this year. And no, they haven't been across the board. We've seen that Magnificent Seven really take off, things impacted by chips, AI. There have also been some other great gains in the market. So you might be looking at your portfolio thinking, oh my goodness, this is incredible. However, you might also have a lot of capital gains sitting in there. So to help offset that, I work with clients in the November, December time period. Usually we start taking a look at where we can do tax loss harvesting. So I also do this every single year. We may not need to use the losses this year, but we can carry them forward into the future. So for example, I had a client who we were able to take some losses for last year because they transferred in from another advisor who had put them in some investments that just weren't the right fit. And so because of that, they had a lot of losses. So we took those. They didn't need them all last year. So in a year like this, it's great because we have now carried them forward. Now, you can't go back in time and use that strategy and take losses for last year. However, if you do have any for this year, this might be the right time to take them. So with these market runs that we've had, it could be, just because, you had something and were holding it doesn't mean that it was necessarily making you a ton of money. You could still have losses in that holding if you happen to just buy on the wrong day or another advisor or money manager purchased for you at the wrong moment, and you could have some losses sitting there. So I really like to use tax loss harvesting because it is a great way to take a step back and analyze a client's entire portfolio. Two of my favorite parts of using tax loss harvesting, number one, it allows us to reallocate their portfolio. It's very easy, especially in this crazy time of year, to sit here and say, okay, we'll deal with it next year. But by pausing tax loss harvesting, even if we don't end up making any trades or taking any losses, it's still a great time to reallocate because we saw tech on a tear this year. You might sit here and say, hey, I am really overweight in tech. And you need to decide, okay, is that the right fit for me to be holding? Or do I need to, pare some of this down? You may have gains. And so one strategy you can use for tax loss harvesting and to note is you may have gains in one account and losses in another. It is not per account. So let's say you have a $500 account or gain in account A and a $300 loss in account B. You can then pair those together, and now you are just sitting there with a $200 gain. Now, keep in mind, gains can come in a few different forms. So gains happen if you actually sell the holding or if you were paid out any dividends or capital gains. Mutual funds pay out capital gains to their holders. So keep in mind, you need to analyze what type of gain that you have. Is it long-term or short-term? And then you compare them appropriately. One of the biggest pitfalls to avoid when you are doing tax loss harvesting is a lot of people are like, oh, I will just sell stock X, Y, and Z and buy it back the next day. That doesn't work. There is something called a wash sale. Now that happens if you sell a holding and buy it back the next day. Sorry, you can't take that loss. You need to wait outside of that 30-day window. However, what you can do instead is you could decide to go into a different holding during that time period. There are so many different ETFs now that cover a lot of the same things. So you might decide, I'm going to sell my tech ETF in this holding company, take the loss on it, and then go buy the tech ETF from this company. That would be allowed. You can't buy the same ticker. That would cause the wash rule. And yes, you will get a notification from whatever brokerage that you use to make the transaction, notifying you that, hey, no, can't work. This was a wash sale. And then come tax time, you won't be able to take that loss. So make sure if you do this and you plan on buying back the same holding, you are watching those 30 days, give it that extra day, and then you can make the purchase. Now, as I said, you can use these going forward, and this is something to track and work with your accountant on, is to understand how much you used in gains the previous tax year and how much you can use going forward. Make sure you are communicating that to your financial advisor. So as they are going through things, they can sit there and say, okay, here's how we're tracking for gains and losses for the year. And this is what we could potentially see as a tax consequence. Now, taxes are part of life, right? As we know the phrase, the only two guarantees in life, death and taxes. So do not sit here and get so hung up trying to just find losses for the sake of finding losses. They should be intentional and strategic. I've had times when my clients are definitely paying tax bills. However, it's when you can use moments like this and say, does it make sense to take this loss? Is this a good time to reallocate? Is this a good time to get rid of this holding? So make sure you are thoroughly going through this process. Lean on your financial team if you have one, or you can schedule an intro call to talk to us further about how we can implement some of these processes going forward. I will see you next week on the Wealth Cafe. And if you have any questions on this topic, I know it can be a little complicated, please leave a comment below and we will try to get back to you.